Okay, we're gonna start, and let's start with just taking a couple of minutes of quiet, just to get ourselves in the right frame of mind for our meditation this morning. Yeah, la 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 la. Yeah, la 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 la. Yeah, la 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 la. Hi la 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 la. Hi la 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 la. Ya la la ya la la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Hi la 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 la. Hi la 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 ya la 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 ya. Hi la la ya la la ya ya. Hi la 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 ya la 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 ya. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la ya la 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 la. Ya la la ya la la. Ya la la ya la 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 la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Again, Boker Tov, everybody. So what I thought I would do this morning is to really delve into one of the most basic and beautiful and powerful meditations we have in Judaism. And it's one that maybe a lot of you are already familiar with, but we're going to go deeper into it. It is the very first prayer that we are taught to say the moment we open our eyes in the morning. I'm going to share my screen. And it is the Modeh or Moda Ani. Let me make that bigger so you can all see it better. Okay. So the Modeh or the Moda Ani. So as I said, it's the first thing we say when we open our eyes. Modeh Ani, I am grateful. Lifanecha, before you. Melech Chai V'Kayam. That's literally the king, the living and existing king. Shehechezarta bi nishmati, who has returned to me my soul bechemla, with kindness. Rabba emunatecha, great is your faithfulness. Like I said, this is an incredibly powerful meditation. When we think about what do we do the first moment that we open our eyes when we wake up in the morning. You know, normally when we think about that moment when consciousness first returns to us from having been asleep, you know, sometimes it takes us a second to get our bearings, right? Like you look around and, you know, okay, what is this? This is the morning. Okay, I'm in bed. Okay, right? There's this kind of recollecting of yourself. And what Judaism does is it gives us a meditation to recite immediately in that radical openness of mind that we inevitably experience when we're just waking up. Because normally what happens when we wake up in the morning? we are, you know, within a couple of milliseconds after that sort of openness, oh, wait a minute, I've got an appointment. I got to get up. I got to quickly brush my teeth, take a shower. Oh boy, yeah, and then I've got this to do later today. And then immediately you go into all kinds of thoughts about a future, or then the second later, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that on that phone call yesterday. You know, the drama and the anxieties and stresses of the day take over. And what is actually a profound spiritual experience of waking up in the morning gets lost behind the discursive thought of ego. So what I'm having us pay attention to now is just the simple meaning of the Modeh Ani. That word modeh is related to the word hodaya, which is gratitude, thanks, or thanksgiving, right? It's giving thanks. So, you know, so when you look at that as a mindfulness instruction, the first thing that we're asked to do Jewishly in that moment of no thought, of that moment of just openness, without knowing what this is this a day? What is this? Immediately there's gratitude. That's what we're at, Modeh Ani. This budding ego, which is waking up, which has been gone while we were asleep. This ego is now asked to say, thank you. Thank you for this universe that is flooding into my awareness right now. Thank you. Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. So, okay, literally the living, existing king, eternal existing king. But let's translate that now into our spiritual practice. I often talk about the image of God as king is a way of talking about God as the presence that gives rise to reality moment to moment, right? Because that reality is going to happen. It's either raining out or it's not raining out in the morning, or snowing, or whatever the season, right? It is what it is. That's reality. You don't get a vote. That's why reality is like a king. It dictates, and we have to accept what it is. So this is a practice in radical acceptance of this universe that we are waking up into. That it is what it is. Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechazarta bi nishmati. So now we're getting into the next moment, right? Well, often the first thing that happens when we wake up is we take a breath. We breathe in. In fact, we're encouraged to take a cleansing breath in this moment, right? Just as we do in our sitting practice right here. We take a breath in and then we release it, right? Shehechazarta bi nishmati. And there's the word play between nishama, which means soul, and breath. They're really the same thing in the Jewish traditional way of looking at our body, heart, mind, soul. It's all interconnected in Judaism. It's other traditions that like to separate them into different things. There's the body here and there's the soul there, and sometimes the soul is in the body. Then it's all interconnected. So we have this idea, as the breath departs and comes back, so the soul, it comes out and goes back into our bodies through each breath, right? And there's the return of the breath in breath is an act of chemla, of kindness, right? Chemla is like rachamim, is with compassion. And rabba emunatecha, right? That God's faithfulness, that every breath is going to come back. You're not going to be abandoned. This next breath is going to come. That God's faithfulness to you is an expression of love. You're alive in this moment. Okay, this moment is over. Now this moment. Now this moment. Now this breath. Each one is an act of incredible divine devotion. The universe is supporting your life, right? So this is the Modeh Ani. It's an incredible moment that I really, sometimes people ask me, how do I do this? How do I integrate this into my life? Start practicing the Modeh Ani when you wake up in the morning. Often our alarm clocks are blaring, and that's, a rough moment, right? Turn the alarm clock off, or your phone. I use my phone. Turn it off after it wakes you up, and just take a moment right there and do the meditation of Modeh Ani or Moda Ani. And so I kind of actually, now I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm going to go to the next section now. This is a very beautiful and famous prayer which extends the meaning of the Modeh Ani in our morning blessings. So I'm going to take you through this now to show you how beautiful this is. If you have another minute or two after you say the Modeh Ani, then we're asked in Judaism to do the Elohai Neshama. Very, very well-known, incredible meditation. This is pure meditation, folks. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tohorahi. My God, the soul breath that you have placed in me is pure. Right? That this is the pure essence of my being, which is sealed into my physical body through the breath. The breath becomes this nexus point of the spiritual and the physical, right? That the aspect of you that is spiritual connects with your body with each breath. That's the idea here. And so that this pure part of you, you can always access it by coming into an awareness of the breath. And then we go into this sort of exploration of the breath. And this is done as we are focusing on the breath. Ata varata. So you, God, created this breath. That the life breath that we are breathing moment to moment is a creation of God. Just as God created light, just as God creates the universe, God creates nature, God creates objects, God creates the breath. When God said, let there be light, that's the moment that this breath that you are breathing was created, right? So you are accessing the moment of creation with each breath. The universe is born again and again with each breath that you take. Atar Yetzarta. So this is the, Yatzar is like the language of formation, or create, like the way if you're creating like a sculpture out of clay, you're forming it out of something, right? So it's a recognition in this breath that the universe around you that you're experiencing is a universe that is being created by the mind of God. Everything is being dreamed by God this moment in this breath, including you. Right? You are the dream of God. Ata nafachta bi, that is, you blew the breath into me. This is a reference to the creation of humankind, right? So we have creation, barata, yatsarta, forming from clay, like the first human being. Ata nafachta bi, then God blew the breath of life into Adam Harishon, into the first human being. So literally, as you begin the day, and you say Modeh Ani, you are recreating the universe through this meditation. The universe is getting born again, and humanity is being born again in this breath, with each breath that you take. You see how this works? This is the inherent timelessness of Jewish time, right? We're encouraged not to go into, oh my God, I have this, that, and the other thing to do today, to get lost in a story of the future, but to stay in the extraordinary timelessness of the present moment. In this moment, this is the moment that the universe was created in. This was the moment that the book of Genesis talked about. This is the moment that Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, not whatever million or thousands, however you want to interpret it, years ago. It's actually happening right now, in this very breath. V'ata mishamra b'kirbi, you guard it keep it within myself, in my body, right? This is a beautiful idea that this is your inner life is being sustained, guarded, protected in that moment of creation. Now we have this interesting play with future here now. Ve'ata atid litla mimeni. You in the future are going to take it from me. Ulahachazira bi la'atid lavo. And then you're going to bring it back to me in the future to come. So what does that mean? Of course, in its literal level, atid litla mimeni means someday I'm going to die, right? We're going to stop breathing. And then you're going to bring it back to me. This is Tchiyat HaMetim. This is a reference to the Jewish concept of the dead will rise again when the Mashiach comes. So that's that typology. And now again, I'm translating this into our spiritual practice, right? So what is true in this moment is true in every moment. Notice what's happening with the breath. The breath goes out to an emptiness. And then what happens? A miracle. A universe is created. The breath comes back, right? So the breath goes out and then it comes back. So literally sealed into our physical bodies is Tchiyat HaMetim. In each breath, you die a little and then you are reborn a little. And this is the way of the universe. Everything dies and is reborn again and again with each, just like the breath. And that's what we're being pointed to here, right? Kol zman shaneshama b'kirbi. With each moment that this neshama, this soul breath is within me, modeh ani lefanecha. Again, we're coming back to the same thing we said the first thing we woke up, right? Every moment that this life breath is within me, I am grateful before you. Adonai Elohai v'Elohei Avotai. And we're recognizing this reality, we're giving it a name, we're calling it God. Right? This miracle, this miraculous arising, which is beyond names, beyond anything we can conceive of. We call that God and the God of our ancestors. Ribon kol hama'asim, Adon kol haneshamot. So God is the master of all deeds, the Lord of all soul breaths, right? That every action, every wind blowing in the world is the same essence as the life breath within you. We're being reminded here that the divinity that gives rise to you in this moment is the divinity that's giving rise to everything without exception. So you are not separate. You're not really a separate being from everything else. We live in the illusion of ego that we are these separate creatures, that we're alone in a big scary universe. And what this meditation is trying to get us to is to use the breath to learn from the wisdom of the breath to see that we're actually co-arising with everything else in the universe. It's all coming from God, what we call God. You can call it whatever you want, right? It's all coming from this emerging reality moment to moment. And so you're not separate. No one is separate from anyone else. No one is separate from anything else. And we end by blessing that truth. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir nishamot ifkari metim. Right? So blessed are you who returns the life breath to literally to dead bodies. That's literally what that means, right? That life is reborn in moment to moment. This is literally creation here. You never lose it. It's all here. I want to point out one more interesting thing before we go into our sit. Notice with me, I'm going to put my cursor, hopefully you can see my cursor, from the beginning, the second line, where it says ata varata. You notice there's a little dot in the hay? You see that dot there? Ata yitzarta, there it is again. Tanafachta bi, ata mishamra, it keeps coming back again and again. That is called a mapik in the hay. And a mapik means that it is not a regular hay. It is a hay that is called an aspirated hay. Okay, so it means you have to give a little bit more oomph to your hay. So the way to actually pronounce that word is Ata varata. Ata yitzarta. Ata nefachta bi. Va'ata mishamra. Do you see what it's doing? It's making you breathe out, right? It's literally in the word, a reminder, breathe, right? It's saying breathe. You see, this is why I always teach, people are all over the world are studying mindfulness now and thinking that we're doing a Buddhist practice. We're not doing a Buddhist practice, we're doing a Jewish practice. We've always been meditating like this with the breath, right? And this is, I can't think of a more perfect proof than the Modeh Ani and the Elohai Neshama to show that we are also sitting with the breath and learning from all of the wisdom that comes from sitting with the breath. So now without any more introduction, let's do that. So let's all sit up comfortably in our chairs. In a relaxed and alert kind of position. And now I'm going to invite you all to now let's take a nice deep breath in. And release it. Let's do that again. And release it. And now let's just allow ourselves to come to a regular breath. Just sit, getting comfortable in our bodies, noticing the places where there's tension, and bringing our awareness to it without forcing ourselves to relax. Just by noticing the tense places, it will relax itself. And then come back to the breath. Notice anything that might be causing a tension. Often when we see a tension in our bodies, it's a reflection. Our bodies are actually always a reflection of the mind. They're reflections of each other, really. So when we have a thought, even if it's unconscious, that's causing tension, something in our body will tense up. So when we're working with the tensions in our bodies, whatever they are, we're actually working with the mind. So allow ourselves, when we see any tension anywhere, to just breathe into that tension and release with the breath. You don't have to know what the thought is that's causing the tension. We don't have to psychoanalyze everything. This is just becoming aware through the vehicle of the breath. And so we're sitting here in the practice now of whatever it is that occurs to us, we come back to the breath. Without judging whatever it is, if it's a thought, a feeling, or a physical tension, just come back to our breathing. Noticing the in-breath, noticing the out-breath. And noticing the spaces in between the in-breath and the out-breath. The experience of fullness at the end of the in-breath that releases in the out-breath to the experience of emptiness. It suddenly arises from that emptiness, the in-breath, to the fullness, and so on. So as we're paying attention to the breath, just notice now, as deeply as you can now, the beauty, the wonder of this breath, whether it be an in-breath or an out-breath. the physical sense of satisfaction, of being nurtured and nourished by this breath. How the in-breath gives us this oxygen that we need so desperately for life. Each in-breath gives us exactly what we need. And notice the out-breath as well, as it releases exactly what we don't need anymore. Releases the carbon dioxide, whatever else it is that we're exhaling, keeping our bodies perfectly in harmony and in balance. It truly is a wondrous phenomenon. We're looking at the very process of life, the very process of the universe. Indeed, it is a moment of modeh or moda ani, that we, the observing consciousness now, noticing this in-breath and this out-breath, we are so grateful. Can you find it? It's the natural response to the miracle of the breath. It's the most basic response there is. Just the gratitude for life. Isn't it a miracle that this breath keeps returning to us? We're doing nothing for it. We did nothing to earn it. It just comes bechemla, with kindness. It's an act of pure generosity. It's an act of rabba emunatecha, of abounding faithfulness, love for us, for you. This very breath is a pure gift. And this is why we say it is Torahi. It is pure because it is arising and emerging and then going back to the divine, to the vast, open, infinite mind of the divine that gives birth to it. We are entirely dependent on it, and yet it is always there for us every moment that we're alive. Atavarata. Notice the quality of the breath that has the power to bring us to this moment before all thought, before all identification, just like the moment we wake up. There is no self or other in this breath. There is simply the source of all being emerging and giving us life. Atayatsarta. In this breath, this in-breath and this out-breath, all of the forms of the universe that we're being born into are being born with us. In this moment, everything is born. If you think there was a past, a moment before this, it's only a memory. It has no substance other than this moment. Everything is forming now, and only now. The past is over. The future doesn't exist. Vata nefachta. B. Notice the quality of the breath. The most miraculous thing of all is that we're not the ones doing the breathing. It's nafachta bi. We are being breathed. If you want to put it in traditional terms, God is breathing us. It's not the other way around. The breath that you're experiencing in your body is the breath of God. The peace and the miracle and the gratitude of this moment is all actually that there is. Everything else is a story that the ego tells. So this is every future moment that's going to happen is going to be no different than this. This breath, this infinite, loving, divine presence that breathes you. Doesn't matter what else is happening in the world. This breath is all there is. Just take another couple of minutes in silence now. Just an incredible gratitude and wonder of this miracle of the breath. Ya la la la, ya la la, ya la. Ya la la, ya la la, la. Ya la la, ya la la, la. La la la, la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la la, la. La la la, ya la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mode ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, שהחזרת בי נשמתי, בחמלה רבה אמונתך. Okay. So, how was that for you? Did anybody run into any kind of roadblocks there, or anything interesting happen for you in that sit?
I felt it was too long. I came back before you were done.
You mean the actual silent sit?
Mm-hmm. I couldn't keep my mind back. It felt like a long time. Maybe it wasn't, but it felt to me like a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So so you know that if you felt that, then other people felt that. So what is So when you were sitting there and then the thought arose, this is taking too long. Tell me what that felt like in your body.
Well, first I tried to go back, like a couple times I recaptured, but then finally it felt like I couldn't sit any longer. I had to open my eyes and get up just to move out of the way, because it was like my mind was done.
So good. So that's what you experienced. Did somebody else experience, maybe you were starting to fall asleep, maybe the opposite valence, right? You're starting to get really tired and you're starting to fall asleep, right? So notice how we had two opposite reactions to the same sit, right? These are normal reactions that happen in when we're working in mindfulness practice. Okay, so remember, going to sit and meditate is a lot like going to the gym, right? Where sometimes we're on that whatever elliptical machine. We're like, oh, I'm sorry, this is just too much, right? I can't do this, right? And then sometimes we have this burst of energy and it goes really well, and sometimes it's too easy, right? Or whatever it is, and we can become impatient with it. So Sari, what you experienced is something that we in the biz, the state of mind that we call that is restlessness, right?
That's what it felt like.
So you were working with a restlessness, right? And so, and a judging thought arose, right? And the judging thought is, this is too long, right? And then what happened? That creates a feedback loop for your restlessness, right? That the more you attach to the thought, this is taking too long, the more restless it becomes. So one of the things that we can do in our practice is when, the restlessness is just a physical state of being. It's just, where your body energy is and your body chemistry is at that moment. And that's part of what is, that's the arising in the moment. The thing to work with is when the mind starts to label it and saying, this is taking too long. Right? And work on sort of noticing the judgment without attaching to it. Right? And that's the trick. And that's hard. It takes a lot of practice. Right? So you reach the point where you can say, you're noticing simply just to yourself, oh, that's an interesting thought. I'm going to come back to the breath. And then the sensation of restlessness will start to happen and it'll start to generate more thoughts. Often restlessness leads to the mind immediately spinning off into, making a laundry list of things you have to do. And I can't believe I'm sitting here and I'm taking all this time and there's stuff that I have to get done. And that makes you more, again, it's a difficult and challenging mental state to work with. But I promise you, it's like, this is spiritual gym, right? So you're doing it right. And you did a great service to everybody on this call now, Sari, by pointing out that question, right? Because we all deal with that, right? So the more we engage with it, the fact that you ask the question means that this is an effective spiritual practice right now for you. Right? And the next time you sit, you'll work with that. Although you might notice the other state, which is called torpor, which is the falling asleep state, can happen also. Right? And that's another process that we work on, right?
Okay, and now I have a problem. My phone is ringing and I'm expecting somebody to come, so I have to leave for a minute. I'm sorry.
There it is, right? That's right. Anybody else have any questions? I love these questions when they come. They're great. They're so helpful and so important because you're helping everybody.
What I kept thinking of, and it's probably why you chose this in a week of I can't breathe, but how you don't appreciate the breath until you don't have it. And I have asthma too, so there have been many times where I'm fighting for breath and then that's over and then it just comes so easily and you don't think about it anymore.
Right.
But in that time where you can't breathe, that's all you can think about.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for bringing, the current events to this, because that's absolutely, something that the tragedy of that moment is that, you know, somebody was trying to and succeeded tragically in crushing the life breath out of somebody, which is you know, killing somebody is that's why we call it a chilul Hashem, a desecration of the name of God. Because as we see in our tradition, the very name of God is the life breath, right? And that's, you know, that's what, and yeah, I have asthma too. So a lot of us Jews seem to have asthma. Yeah, we know what it is to not feel the breath. And we're also during COVID right now, where it also attacks the breath, right? So all these reminders in the world around us about how important this practice is and why it's so basic in Judaism. There's a reason why Judaism and all the great spiritual traditions of the world have us turn to the breath as the great teacher of spiritual life for all of us. You know, there are other lines that come up in our tradition. The line of sorry, Kol Hanshama Tehalel Yah, hallelujah, we say in our morning service, right? Kol Hanshama, the breath of every living thing, is shall praise God, hallelujah, right? You know, that's another concept. We also hear it in Nishmat Kol Chai Tevarech et Shimcha, the breath of every living thing blesses God. So as much as the breath is God breathing us, the moment we notice the power of the breath, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of prayer, of blessing, right? All sense of blessing, of the ability to bless and to pray and to praise and to acknowledge arises when we recognize that our life breath is this miracle, right? It is prayer. You know, we prayed this morning together, even though we didn't actually open a siddur together. We prayed together because we were sitting with the presence of God in our breath. Barbara, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, like many of us, I'm sitting outside, and there's a wonderful breeze, and focusing on the breath and experiencing the breeze was just such a wonderful feeling to feel that that's the breath of God and the universe, and the connection was just a wonderful feeling.
That is absolutely beautiful, and thank you. Yeah, it is all about connection, right? You know, you know, talk about spirituality. Even though in English, spirit is respire, is from the Latin to breathe. It's always that over and over again. You know, spirituality is all about how to be connected, how to feel connected. Right? And connected means connected. It means that you're not separate. Nothing is separate. The great secret of all the mystics of all religions is that we call non-dual. It's not two. There is not me versus you. We're actually co-arising in the same divinity. And as Barbara, as you were breathing and you could feel that breeze blowing, that was siman, that was your sign that's the ultimate reality that's happening. George, did you want to say?
Yeah, you just reminded me by talking about being connected. So I started erect as I normally do, sitting erect, and a couple of times I found myself, as you said, almost asleep and almost falling over. And in the instant I caught myself, the first thought was, how long have I been like this? Disconnected, totally disconnected. And it reminded me of times when I'm out on a run, even listening to a podcast, and all of a sudden I'll get into a groove, and some minutes later I'll notice I'm a quarter of a mile or even half a mile ahead of where I last remembered. And so there's a feeling of disconnect there as well, and wondering where I was during that period. Sitting here.
You know, I actually, or George, I want to I ask you to reframe that a little bit. Were you disconnected in any of those moments? The truth is, we're never disconnected. We're actually, we're just not necessarily aware of it or not, you know? So, you know, another way of looking at that, George, is when we really do the practice, when you're really centered in the present moment. You know, it was Csikszentmihalyi, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He wrote the book on flow state, right? That in a flow state, you have no sense of time or even space. With, you know, people who are, they get into this groove, like you say, when you're in your run and you're really in there, you're in a flow. That's actually pure mindfulness. Because what's happening is when there's no self, that's actually, you're doing it. That moment, you're realizing the self is actually just a dream. The self is your story about things that in our conventional consciousness. But actually, there is no self and other. It's all one arising. It's our minds that divide it into pieces and parts, right? And for some of us, that's a little bit scary.
Yes.
To suddenly realize there's no self or other, right?
Yeah.
It's our minds don't like that. The ego doesn't like that. The ego wants to be separate, right? So you know, actually, when we're in that state of pure connection, you notice, George, when you're in that place, it's actually wonderful.
Yes.
Right? When we are in a total flow on a run, it's wonderful. When we're fast asleep, when there's no self, it's delicious. Right? I mean, we love a good night's sleep, right? Those are all times when we are infinitely connected, when there's no self or other, right? So that's the real truth that these practices point us to. Most of us don't like it. It's too scary to think that there's no self. Then what am I? What's going to become of me? The ego thinks nothing is terrible, but it's actually not true. Meanwhile, we're here and we are experiencing our world as separate people. And so our job is to love each other and to take care of each other. And know it in the back of our minds, actually, we're not really separate. That's the Jewish way of looking at it, right? All right, we're almost out of time, so we're just going to do a quick 2-minute sit, and then we'll say Shabbat Shalom in a moment. So everybody, let's just even if we're restless or tired or whatever, we're going to do another 2 minutes here. Okay, so we can invite you to close your eyes. Take a breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. And as the breath comes and goes, allow it without us feeling like we need to control anything. Let's just bask in it. Let's just enjoy the arising of breath, mind, thought, body, sensation, breeze. With each in-breath we notice, with each out-breath we notice and come back. Just notice this breath. Nothing else. And notice the gratitude that is always there for each breath that comes and each breath that goes. That's it. It's all we have to do. Kol hanishama tehalleluya. Hallelujah. Kol hanishama tehalleluya. Hallelujah. Kol hanishama tehalleluya. Hallelujah. 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 Boker Tov, everybody, and enjoy the beautiful, beautiful day. And we're davening tonight at 6:30. I look forward to seeing you then and tomorrow at 9:15. Thanks, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Wonderful.
Bye, folks.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Everybody.